Kevin Caban, as mentioned, some strong things to say in relation to the Declan Rice saga. That's not gone our way, unfortunately. That's the way that is. Ronan is going to join us very shortly. Alan Quinlan, good morning to you.
Good morning, Adrian.
Where are you at with Declan Rice? Are you...
I tell you, there's a tweet that PJ Gallagher put up, if the lads want to find it, and I liked it, and it said something along the lines of, I hope he poos in his pants for the next 2 years every time he plays.
He's not wishing him well, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm a little bit like that. It's a money move, and it's a...
I hope Declan Rice shites his shorts every match for a year.
Right, I didn't want to say that.
I think it's an unlikely wish to come true. But, I mean, the comparison's been made, obviously, with there's been a whole bunch of players that have... It's a different scenario, but there's a whole bunch of players, obviously, that come into Ireland and assumed nationalisation at some point or another. And, like, the idea that... And I know Kevin has no time for this argument whatsoever, but that the idea of nationalism has changed now, and it takes on a whole bunch of different guises.
It takes on what's best for me. Yeah. It's not what I feel and who I'm loyal to. It's what's best for me. And that's
the commonality between the CJ Standards and the Bundy Ackies and the Declan Rices.
So there's a perception that the CJ Standard and Bundy Aki and these guys came here specifically to play for Ireland, which I don't think they did. I think they came here with the opportunity for Standard to play for Munster and change, and if it works out, and I don't think initially they're saying I'm going there for 3 years.
Is there not a quiet word from somebody saying, "Here, listen, come in, and if everything goes according to plan"?
Oh yeah, sure. That's part. The agent will be told that, and look, if you, there is a bigger picture, and you'd be naive to think that there's not. And you target certain positions over the years, and I think the RFU have done that very astutely. It's a long debate, and I respect the people's opinions on it, whether they think it's right or think it's wrong. But I think the Declan Rice one it's a career move, and it's not. He's 20 years of age. He's a kid. He's still very young. It's his advisors and the people around him have kind of brought, like as I said, if you belt out the national anthem, I just don't know how you can change and sing another national anthem. This has to happen. There has to be a cut-off point, I think, at 18 or 19. If you get involved with a senior team, how you can play a senior friendly for one country and then go, well, by the way, I'm not going to play for him. There needs to be some change in that rule there that it cuts out this stuff in the future. But he's a loss to Ireland. But I think it's a complete career move.
Ronan O'Gara, I put you on the spot here. Do you have anything to offer on the Declan Rice saga, or will we move on?
Move on, lads.
The nation is told.
No, I haven't followed it, but I obviously saw what Kevin Caban and a few of the boys were saying, and it's you kind of need to know what you represent and what your values are. But as Quinny said, he's 20 years of age, so quite difficult, and you're highly influenced at that age.
We've put Christchurch up as your caption there, but Auckland, I'm assuming, is it?
Yeah. The Crown Plaza in Auckland, very glamorous, isn't it?
It looks a bit bog standard. Have you any photos written behind you, Rog, there to kind of brighten up the picture a bit?
No, it's a life in the hotel room now tonight. So here tonight, tomorrow night, and back down Sunday. So only dying to chat to you. I can keep you going for the morning now, lads, if you want.
Good, we need you. We've had like 15 guests already pull out, so stay with us. It's obviously Super Rugby starting this weekend for people I'm sure they're aware, and you're starting against the Blues tomorrow.
Started, yeah.
I was looking at your record at Eden Park. Mixed enough?
Yeah, it's...
your record personally?
When I used to play for Ireland?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously I never beat them, so that would mean I'd have a poor record there, Adrian.
Well, you had. I mean, I know you're having a dig at me, and that's fair enough. I'm okay with that. You did actually have one win at Eden Park.
With who? The Lions.
No. Was that big?
Yeah, I won.
Oh yeah, no, it was. Yeah, it was, wasn't it? Or was it the Australia game?
I tell you, he had a great.
The Australia game?
He had a very enjoyable time in 2002 there when I came on the field on the 58th minute in the second test against the All Blacks, and he just came off the field and got replaced for David Humphreys and had a big grumpy head in him, as he usually had. But I went on the field and I landed back in the same seat 60 seconds later with him, and Jesus, it cheered you up no end, didn't it? It just made your whole night. You totally forgot about being withdrawn from the match yourself, and you thought this was the best entertainment ever. I was back in the bench with you. That was a good night for you, wasn't it?
Oh, sometimes you have to laugh, don't you?
Well, that was it, yeah. I couldn't laugh at the time.
2011 against Australia, Rog.
Yeah, I know. No, it's a great surface. It's a great stadium, actually. So it's Super Rugby started tonight. Highlanders down to 14 men. I don't know. Did you see the red card?
No.
Very another highly debatable decision, but obviously trying to make the game safe. You should have a look and see what you think. But red card and Highlanders down to 14, and they turned the game around and they beat the Chiefs in Hamilton. So one game on, and there's an Aussie game now on at the minute. So the Rebels are playing the Brumbies. So it's full on now. Yeah. Super Rugby.
What's your week been like? You were obviously here last weekend, and then you're in transit, I presume, for most of the majority of it over there. What does your week involve? You're obviously been spoken about by some significant names in the game over the last number of years about your quality as a coach and what you're bringing to it. So tell us what that is.
What my week was, or what my brief involves? Sorry.
What your week was. So what's the...
Oh, my week was, so yeah, I left Virgin Media on Sunday night, and I flew at 8 o'clock after the France-England game. I got to Christchurch at 1:45, got home at 2:15, shower, got up to the club for 3 o'clock. Tuesday afternoon is kind of individual development opportunity for the boys in the club, so people kind of look at, for they have a 3-hour period where they have an opportunity to progress an interest outside the game. So some people would do, a course with police officers. Some people would do maybe financial management exams. Other people might see sports psychologists. So it's very varied, very individualised. That's what they do Tuesday afternoon. Wednesday it's kind of an individual skills day. So the hookers would throw, the nines would do a bit of passing and box kicks. Whoever wants to kick, there's an optional kicking session. I joined in on that, and I was rusty. Very disappointed with my kick quality Wednesday afternoon. And then Thursday is full on. It's a big day. It's in our time, when Quinlan and myself stayed, the Tuesday was probably the big session, but Thursday is the big kind of, so in the morning is clarity and kind of walk clarity, and then Thursday afternoon is full on.
And are you working on game plan, Ronan, sorry to cut across you. Are you working on game plan then over the course of that, or how does your brief this week fit in then to the sort of overall scheme of things for the game plan for tomorrow?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so basically I would be just getting running lines or thoughts or positional shape on first phase attack. So every time we have a line out or a scrum, what are we hoping to achieve and why are we hoping to do it, and what does that look like for the backs? I wouldn't be in control of the forwards running lines. I'd be in control of everything about the backs basically.
So where does that intersect between whatever the work the forwards coach is doing to get clean ball off a line out, for example, use that?
For example, we would kind of start with units. So units clarity would be the forwards doing their stuff, the backs doing their detail, and then when we come together as a team, the attack coach would kind of take what we did in backs units and forwards units and put that together.
Right. And I presume you were, because I know you mentioned last week about when you were in with the lads, you were talking about the quality of that Blues team. They've not had the easiest of, a few years really. You'll take some heart, I'm sure, from the fact that Sonny Bill is on the bench, but a few decent players in that back line. Yeah,
there is. Would you expect that? I think once you kind of get involved in coaching, I think you obviously do a fair bit of analysis of the opposition, but you'd be surprised the amount of I suppose time involved with your own team. That's what concerns me basically. There's 17 backs, only 10 of them get to tag out, so you have the kind of management of the 7 out of the group, and then the 10 that are going to represent the group at the weekend. So much focus is getting ourselves right. I find I put a lot of my, I suppose, time and effort into that, because it's something you can measure and something you can control.
Ronan, I know you've only been back down there for a couple of days, but what's your sense of what the New Zealand rugby fraternity think of the Six Nations? Do they watch it a lot? Have they been looking closely at Ireland and England's performances?
Yeah, they did. I think they were just... it's 30 degrees in New Zealand at the minute, so no one, I suppose, understands, especially because of all of the teams I played. And when we went down there, it was always really cold and horrible conditions. So I suppose they just kind of are fascinated with it. I think in the Ireland-England game, they saw the players up close and there was breathing fog coming out of their mouths, you know. So it was like, was it that cold? And I said, yeah, it was that cold, you know. But they were impressed by England. I think a lot of people were, just comments in terms of England were good, you know. England were good is what they were saying. And when
Yes, line breaking up there a small bit. We'll try and re-establish that and get back to Ronan there in a couple of minutes. Like an interesting brief, obviously, he has, and trying to stitch all that stuff together, where it's interesting to hear that, you'll be inherently aware of it, but from the layman's point of view, when you're looking at rugby and you're seeing all these moves stitched together, it just seems like such a normal thing. And actually, that breakdown of you do the line out, I'll do the attack move that works off that, like there's a highly technical...
Yeah, and you're trying to gel all that stuff together and there's player input and from that, but that's probably the key. Get the week right. It's all about planning and being prepared as best you can, and that everyone knows their role.
Yeah, and ideally get off to a winning start, Ronan, tomorrow, I assume. Objective A for yourself and the coaching team?
Yeah, I suppose there's a great... actually, result hasn't even been talked about. It's been very performance driven, and I know that's cliched, but there's a big thing here about just getting better or get beaten. It's a great phrase, you know, so you either get better or get beaten. So we have to get better in every area, because when you're the champions, teams come after you that little bit harder, and one game can make their season, so we're aware of that. But I think it's, this would be hopefully, if you were to do something spectacular this season and win it 3 times in a row, it's a little bit different to kind of back up. So last year was a bit of a pressure season. So this year there is pressure, but that's not the right mindset to go into this campaign. But I think there's a really sense of expressing ourselves and a sense of enjoying it, enjoying each other's company and enjoying the journey. And that's what makes sport, I think, very special.
Rog, give us a sense of the competitiveness and the bite between the teams in New Zealand. Is it similar to the provincial rugby here? You know, Munster-Leinster play, it's a massive game. Leon MacDonald, former Crusaders, coaching the Blues. All these guys, a lot of these guys know each other very well. Is there a bite, and is there the same kind of rivalry in these provincial matches?
I don't think there is. I genuinely don't. I think because
are they all high-fiving each other, chatting before the game, go out and play the match, and all chatting nicely after the game? Give us a sense of what it's like.
You know, I think with the system over here, there's a lot of more movement of players because of the kind of a draft system they have, you know. So essentially for Super Rugby, like there's 15 out halves needed for Super Rugby for the New Zealand teams. So that's a huge number alone of New Zealand players, you know. So like every squad would have to carry 3 10s. So the way it happens with New Zealand rugby, I suppose, controlling the players and centrally contracting, they move them around the 5 teams a lot more than, you know what I mean. I think in our time there wasn't a possibility of you know what I mean, 3/4 of the group moving between Leinster and Munster or Munster and Leinster, and I think that's a good thing. But
we're seeing it more in Ireland now, aren't we?
You are, but I think with maybe only a certain amount of players too. I don't think you see it with the top players, or the very top players. It just doesn't make sense, because that's a real strength of the Irish system. I find in that those people playing for their provinces are from there and they've grown up there. And if you have 10 of them on every team, you're going to have a really strong provincial system. So over here, there's obviously more teams, Alan. So players move around, and they kind of there's temporary replacement players, and there's just I don't think that rivalry would be as strong. But something the Crusaders really pride themselves on is that they have a lot of guys who only played for the Crusaders, and the massive thing over here is trying to get to play 100 tests for the Crusaders, and that's what all the kind of senior players aspire to do.
You said a couple of weeks ago, and I was chatting to you, probably said it publicly as well, that when you go back, you're going to have to try and assess how do you stop Rieko Ioane, Man Nanu. The Sonny Bill Williams is not playing, correct?
He's on the bench.
He's on the bench, but TJ Fayani, is it?
Yeah.
He's another superb, skillful player. So I know Adrian was asking you a minute about the plan and the structure. How do you stop those guys? What do you do? Hold on to the ball, keep it away from him. Ioane's incredible, isn't he?
Yeah, well, that's you with the ball. I think obviously they're going to have ball at certain places, but I think the message that I've been trying to drill into the guys here is that all Super Rugby players, they love time and space, but if you take away their time and space, it becomes quite difficult. So if you do that connected and you get your team connected to do that 50, 60, 70 times in a game, it hopefully makes it a lot more painful for them than it is for us. So Super Rugby's all out attack, as you can see. If you saw the game this morning, it was just so much space. But one of our policies would be to what every good footballer likes is time on the ball. You got to try and take away the time, Alan, or else you're going to be just receiving offloads and back under your sticks a lot of the night.
Your superstar 10, Richie Moanga, who you're taking all the credit for, he's starting tonight. Are you excited? Well, you said to me many times that you've developed him into the great player he is now. So, and on a serious note, are you excited? What kind of shape is he in?
I actually genuinely think
he's a great
there's so
player.
much more to come. Yeah, he's been electric in training this week. His centre of gravity, his acceleration, his capacity to play off the cuff. He's very powerful. He has that to his game exactly like how Joey Carbery busts through the two forwards for his score, or setting up the score for Earlsey against Scotland. He does that regularly as well. I think it's really, his capacity to accelerate through contact is fascinating. So it is great because he's got a bite to him. He can give you lip as well. He's a little bit like coaching you, Quinny. So I have my hands full.
I'd say between the two, it's not an
He's a good player,
story.
though, Richie Moanga. To be fair, I've watched and Roger's been going on about him. He's a super player.
Just, you mentioned Joey Carbery, and you spoke very glowingly about him last weekend, Ronan, and the capacity that he has. And I suppose playing with instinct was the phrase that jumped out at me that you used at that time. And I suppose the question I had was that it strikes me that that's something that can really, and has been really working at Munster under Van Gran. But like that instinct, or playing that instinct, even that move that you spoke about against Scotland, frequently you see a Joe Schmidt player in that instance going to ground and recycling the ball, not taking that risk of almost, potentially getting isolated at some point.
I wouldn't even say it's taking that risk. I just don't know that they have that ability. I think that's what Joey Carbery has. I think he's an incredible rugby player. I've always maintained he's a long way to go in terms of his game management, because he just needs probably to fine-tune his kicking game at the highest level, which will come. He's 23, I think. So by the time he's 26, hopefully that'll be really, really top notch. But what I think a lot of people are beginning to realise is this guy, after 50 minutes in any test match, will be on the pitch. I don't know what position he will be, but his capacity. Very few players in the world would score a try he scored against Gloucester when he came in for Munster at 15. Well, you just kind of, when he faded and swerved and took an inside ball and then got back out to score. I think he has an exceptional centre of gravity. He's very exciting. He's strong. He's powerful, and he's brave. And he plays on instinct, which really excites me.
Given the capabilities and the potential that this guy has, is there a case for just getting him in, and even in terms of the range of positions that he can play, is there a case for just getting him in this Irish team, Ronan, or should we just be a little bit more patient and sort of bide our time and, go all in at 10 essentially?
No, I wouldn't necessarily think he has to be at 10. I think what also is crucial, Adrian, too, is when are teams tiring, and at what stage will he be? There's very little space in a test game for the first 20 minutes. So there's no point trying to kind of force your hand there. But maybe 7 minutes before the break, or after 62 to 80 minutes in a test game, the defences are small but flagging. And that's when he's exceptional, if he's fresh. But if he's already done an hour and you're looking for him to break the line, it becomes a lot more difficult. So there's a skill in introducing him. There's a skill in knowing when and where to use him, I would think.
Yeah, just as you're talking, I wonder what shape that takes in whether it's a year's time or 2 years' time or 3 years' time when he is the starting 10.
He's obviously taken his chance big time in Munster. I think he's been consistently good this season, and in the Scottish game, he had the intercept is great because it in terms of it can happen to anyone. Obviously, if he probably had the chance back, he probably wouldn't have had that shot selection in terms of a pass. But that happens. But you just reset and get going again. And then he was brilliant for the rest of the game. So, I think he is an option at 10 for Ireland, most definitely. But, if Johnny's body's fit and his mind is good and he's feeling good, he'll be the starting number 10. There's no doubt about that. But I think if you were a coach and you have someone like Carbery in your back pocket, it's a real weapon in terms of having them there.
Well, that's the thing. One of the big criticisms that was kind of thrown at Ireland after the England game was that there was apparently no plan B from Joe Schmidt. I'd be keen to get your take on how different a team is with Joey Carbery at 10 to a team with Johnny Sexton at 10.
Yeah, very different players at different stages of their careers. Obviously, I think Johnny's head would work like a computer. He's very processed and very calculated, and I think he has a great capacity to probably play.
Yeah, I think we just lost Ronan there for a
little bit. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're there. Yeah, you're dropping in and out, and Joe's just going to sort that for you there. So stick with us for a second. I don't know. I think in every sport, the Declan Rice saga is not unlike it, where we rush to want the Declan Rices or the Joey Carberys of this world to be the immediate fix, and we want it to happen straight away. We're not, and especially, I don't think it's an Irish thing, but we're not especially patient. We want an easy fix, a great fix. We want it straight away. In terms of putting him in somewhere on the pitch, bit of patience probably.
You don't have to. I think he's matured really well and said he wants to challenge Johnny Sexton this year. I think he big balls to make the move down to Munster and stuff like that. I think what Roger's saying is having an option of even playing him as a full back, playing him as a 12 or playing Sexton as a 12. He just has that little bit of
Could you put him in at 12 now? The midfield is a bit uncertain, isn't it, in an Irish context?
Well, you can. It depends. I think there's so many good centres there at the moment. It's probably not something that Joe would look to do. You take away really physical presence of Aki or Henshaw, who are your 12s. But I just think having the ability to have Carbery as He can play full 15. He was brilliant for Leinster last year. So look, he's an incredible talent, and probably that game management is something that it just naturally improves as you play more games.
Yeah, all right. One of the other things I want to get your thoughts on, Ronan, before we let you off. I know it's late, but 10:20. I'm thinking your time from the little bit.
Usually from my time.
He's tucked up, is he?
He's lights out at 9:30. Yeah, it was a disaster at night. I'd have to wait till he was into a deep sleep and then try and sneak the TV back on.
Would you eat room? Would you?
We would, yeah.
All the time.
No, most of the time with Munster. He roomed with Donica. Was it for Ireland most of the time?
Donica Ronan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Of
definitely
course.
lights out early though, wasn't it for you?
You wouldn't know. You were back in tip.
Oh,
The ultimate insult.
the ultimate. Right, okay. Room with you for Munster then. You were definitely lights out.
Oh yeah. No, I am. Yeah. I like going to bed early usually, but.
I called into him last week at 9:00 one night into his hotel. He was asleep. He'd arranged to meet me, so that tells you anyway. Right, move on.
What as he'd say himself, what are you like? What do you like the night before a game like that? Is your mind sort of racing about the plays that you've done? Are you trying to tweak it? I remember hearing Eddie O'Sullivan talking before about sort of second guessing himself on the game plan, like right up to the sort of last minute. Are you a person who's settled on your game plan, communicated all that across, and even if I wanted to make tweaks, it's too late? Or are you still sort of trying to second guess yourself even now?
No, I think the massive, I suppose, positive about this experience in New Zealand is the fact that I just feel, I don't know, a lot more confident or mellow or secure and not second guessing or not potentially causing myself that mental stress of playing every play over in your head. I think, you know what I mean? You're not playing, so you just got to make sure that you have your players in the best possible headspace before they take the pitch. You know what I mean? It's not about you feeling good. You have absolutely very little role by the time kickoff comes. So what are you beating yourself up over? You know what I mean? I think that you got to trust your preparation. You got to trust that you've worked hard during the week, and then you got to just find that kind of inner contentment and energy for game day that rubs off in your players.
Would you be stressed as a player? Was that something that you would have done?
Oh yeah, I was way too stressed, much too stressed. Yeah, I didn't enjoy it really. I enjoyed the winning dressing room. I enjoyed the sense of accomplishment, but I never really enjoyed the build up. I found it too overcoming, and I just it's important, I think, that you just draw a line in the sand. And now, you know what I mean, there's a lot of good men that have gone, that have left, that haven't the chance for us to analyse the game inside out and enjoy these special moments. So I'm very different in that regard now. It's not what can go wrong, it's what can go right.
Rod, it's the last question I'll ask you, just about the game. Do you feel an added pressure being the champions? Because I was talking about Dundalk this morning, the SSE Electricity League is back on. They're champions, and we were talking about the intrigue of how do teams cope when they've won something, and how do they bounce back and win it again. So for you guys, you're the Super Rugby champions, you're away in the first game. Is there added pressure, and what's that mentality like with Scott Robertson and the team? You don't have all your All Blacks back yet. Do you kind of expect to go and win? This word expectation.
I think last year, as I said, I think when you were trying to back it up and win back-to-back titles, there was probably a bit of pressure, but the mindset is very different here. It's very, I suppose, matter of fact, and just get better. Simple as that. And what does that look like? It looks like kind of every guy nailing their detail and every guy bringing something that the team benefits. So it's always what's best for the team. And you just got to park your ego before you come to the dressing room, and then let rip when you get to the training pitch. We have a lot of fun too, though. There's massive emphasis on fun in the Crusaders, and I think that rubs off. I think people enjoy playing for the guy next to them, and you got to work that too, though.
There's the coach ringing to tell you to get yourself to bed.
Yeah, well, sorry, I think the coach deserves a mention. I haven't come across a coach like Razor. He's very, very different. He's a bit of a mad genius. I think he excels around mindset. Fascinating how he views the game and how he views people's minds and how he can get the best out of them. And his motivation is brilliant.
Ronan, a final question for me then is like the culture change that you've seen, I guess, between rugby in New Zealand and rugby in France, because obviously it's pretty trendy this week to completely bash French rugby culture. They've got it from all angles this week. Have you noticed a big disparity between the quality of the cultures?
Yeah, there would be, and the fact that there's so much player movement in France that it's hard to create that really strong player-driven group. Culture is obviously it's when you have an environment that works when there are no coaches there. That's what culture really is. It's when your coaches aren't there and the players are able to run the session themselves. In France, it's a lot of holding hands and telling, while in New Zealand, it's a lot of, I suppose, stability in the environment and a lot of enjoyment, encouragement, a lot of sharing of ideas between players and coaches. So it's you're right. It's easy to bash the French, but it was a huge challenge and a huge goal of mine to try and create that. And I think in Racing there was a good culture, but the starting point was so different to where a New Zealand club's culture would be.
Well, we'll put you forward for the French job if Jack Brunel gets the sack after the Six Nations. Rog, we'll put you forward for that one anyway. Isn't that right, Adrian?
It's highly
Could be the
possible.
right
Let's
man
not
for the
rule it
job.
out.
They've taken no outsiders, but I saw Ian McGeechan did a piece in last week after the game and said they need to get an outside coach in and for a change in France. So you could be the man.
Yeah.
That's it.
Move on.
Yeah, move on. Yeah.
Move on.
That's like I think that's probably a good final point to touch on. But like you just mentioned holding hands there and the hand-holding culture that might exist in French rugby culture. Like it's probably reading way too much into this, but that isn't like part of the fact that say people who are playing a little bit out of position, like in that back three for France last week, not being able to figure out a situation like they were presented with against England.
Well, it's too hard, I think, to asking a player to do that. Players playing at club level, even if they're going against other international players in the position they play, it's a 50-50 game at best. And probably if you're in the French team and you've drawn of as much direction as you would get from another team, it's probably 40-60 against the French players. Then you're getting guys that have never played or rarely at all played in that position, and you're putting them in to Twickenham and you're saying, okay, well, you haven't had clarity in that position. You haven't had the 3 or 4 games to bring you up to speed where you might get a confidence about your positioning. And then you're thrown in at the deep end and you're said, okay, well, defend Owen Farrell's kicking game here. Defend, Johnny May with 30 metres of space either side. It's unrealistic to expect to get results that way, I would find.
Ronan, brilliant. Thanks a million. Best of luck tomorrow.
Cheers, lads. Sorry
Thanks
about the connection. Chat to you
That
soon.
was perfect. Yeah, good stuff. Thanks a lot. Ronan O'Gara live on the line there from the Crown Plaza Hotel in Auckland.
We've stayed there before.
Yeah? Is that your base? Good spot.
Yeah, it's grand. It's grand.
You're talking about sort of post-playing days, but that glint in your eye.
No, it was a good location. It was right in the centre of the city and close enough to Eden Park as well. So I'm kind of envious. I'd love to be in that position of coaching like him and seeing that culture. And New Zealand rugby is incredible.
Do you ever think about doing
it?
Like you've probably jumped the fence, baby,
yeah,
as our friend would say.
A bit too much, but yeah, I love the idea of doing some sort of coaching, and I do help out some club teams and schools teams and stuff like that. But you've got to really immerse yourself if you're going down a path like that. And it was a natural progression for Rog, to be fair. He was like a coach when you played with him anyway.
Yeah. Was he, yeah?
Yeah, he was, yeah. He was very, very intelligent and
What shape does that take? Like, is that in the week in the lead into a game, or is
yeah, it's just detail and planning and structures around, what way you want to play and the opposition strengths and weaknesses, and it comes really natural to some guys, and not necessarily guys who are internationals. Top class players don't necessarily become top class coaches. Mike Prendergast, who played with Munster, he's done a brilliant job in France. He's with Stade now with Paul O'Connell, and Prendy's one of the most intelligent, kind of astute rugby brains that you could ever meet.
Right.
Brilliant vision for space and a fantastic attacking coach. So, Prendy didn't play for Ireland, but there's a lot of guys out there so it's unfair to kind of say, well, you have to play for your national team or excel at the top level. There's some brilliant coaches out there who haven't done that, but I just think you see some guys then that you play with that you go, well, they're practically coaching anyway. It's down to their temperament then, if they want it or not, if they want to continue that, because it's pretty pressurised. His week, as he said there, is completely jam-packed with planning, structure. He's trying to balance that with your personal life and family life as well. So you hear all coaches saying they're in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they're, before any players or anything arrive, they're trying to structure the day and what's going on, and they're probably having coaches meetings, and it's relentless when you're a coach.
And would your temperament be more kind of cold, calculated, analytical, or more hairdryer treatment?
You're a hairdryer man, Quinny.
Smashing the hairdryer. No, I'd be much calmer as a coach, I think, than I was probably as a player. I think I'm not sure if I could cope with the head coach role, where you've got the whole process to manage and travel and letting players go. And I think the idea of going out onto a field and having a group of forwards and coaching the line out or scrum and stuff like that, and obviously there's a fair bit goes with that as well, but being the head coach can drive fellas bonkers as well. It's a lot of pressure with it. You win, it's great. You start losing, and
he comes on, and it's going to be a fleeting
so it's dealing
thing.
with that, and
you're not making the sort of money like that you're making if you're a Premier League manager.
Yeah,
you just need a gig for a year, and then you're set up for life. I think he talks about Scott Robertson there having the right temperament and mindset and stuff like that. He's if you met him, you would go, he's not your kind of. He's funny. He's great crack. He's really outgoing. He's kind of not your robotic type coach sometimes, So he's, but it's a tough gig. Not a bad team to coach, the Crusaders, to be fair. The quality of Pro 14, and I'm an advocate, not amazing this weekend. Not a huge amount of games necessarily to get stuck into. Owen's going to go to his first League of Ireland match. Quinny is one of the big storylines on the Today Show tonight. Have you ever been to a League of Ireland game?
You're going to go to Daily Mount?
I was in Tala about 2 or 3 years ago. I went to a game.
Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think you see some great games in it. Some drab ones at times, but I enjoyed watching it, and I watch it on TV if I'm at home.
Somebody points out that somebody on YouTube, Peter M, Owen's local club is Cork City. He's from Kerry, and Cork City. He would hate that though because of the anti-Cork slurs that come out of his mouth.
Yeah, I just can't help myself a few anti-Cork slurs. I suppose Quinny, you're the same as well.
No, I love it. Well, back in the day when I started, once I played with Munster, then we all became one,
Did you really, though?
Did you really? Some rivalry, Cork and Tip in Thurles now in a Munster final. Jesus, that was spiky.
We'll have a lot to get stuck. Are you back in on Monday?
Yeah.
We'll have to get stuck into Six Nations boys then. Thanks a million for the minute. Alan Quinlan, as always, on a Friday, and Ronan live on the line there from Auckland as well. Next up, we're going to